My entitled mom favored my golden sister my whole life and made me pay the rent at 16, but now she's drowning in debt without me and begging me for help. All right, so let me start at the beginning because otherwise none of this is going to make sense. I'm 20 male now, but most of my life up until I turned 18 was basically me being stuck with a mom who treated me like garbage and a little sister who was the golden child. And before anyone says, oh, parents always favor one kid a little, that's normal, let me stop you there. This wasn't just a little favoritism. My mom straight up made it clear I didn't matter, and my sister basically got everything, the attention, the money, even my own birthday parties. I was 8, my sister was 5, and every day at home felt like I was the extra kid nobody asked for. A typical morning went like this. I'd be in the kitchen making toast before school, standing on my tiptoes to spread the last bit of butter because we were out of jam. Mom would be at the counter scrolling her phone, barely acknowledging me. Then my sister Lila would strut in, dragging her pink riding helmet and crop on the tile like she was leading a parade. Without even glancing at me, Mom's face would light up and she'd say, there she is, my star rider. Dad and Mom were never really together by the time I was old enough to remember anything. They had already split before my sister was even born. And honestly, it made sense because they were completely different people. Dad had one of those jobs that meant he was always on the move, bouncing from city to city, sometimes even states apart, and he couldn't just settle down in one spot. Mom hated that about him, said he was unreliable and selfish, but the truth was he kept sending money back every month, and without him, she wouldn't be able to cover half the stuff she bought for my sister's horse obsession. The fridge was the easiest way to see the difference between me and my sister. Right in the center, eye level, was always one of Lila's horse drawings. One day it was just a blob with 4 sticks for legs, but Mom had it pinned like it was museum-worthy. My spelling test with a big red A+ was stuck to the side panel, half covered by a coupon. When I tried to move it to the front, Mom slapped my hand away. Not hard, just enough to sting, and said, don't mess with the display. Your sister's art has a theme. I remember staring at that ridiculous stick horse and mumbling, it's just a horse. She didn't miss a beat. And she's committed. Even chores weren't equal. Mom kept a chart taped by the sink called Family Helper Points. Only my name was on it. Lila's column was empty because, as Mom put it, riding is her work. So I was the one dragging the trash to the curb, vacuuming, folding laundry, and wiping baseboards on Saturday mornings. Once, I asked for a break. Can I have a rest day too? Like Lila? Mom looked right at me and said, don't be lazy. Your sister has potential. You should support her. Horse, when I pushed back and said, I got potential too, she raised an eyebrow and asked, in what, exactly? I didn't have an answer, so I just kept scrubbing. Car rides were the same story. The whole car reeked of leather cleaner and dirt from the stables. Mom would drive with one hand and fuss with Lila's braid with the other. I'd sit in the back, bent over my math workbook, trying to finish before we got home. Lila would lean forward and whine, Mom, can I get the glitter saddle blanket? Maddie has one. And Mom would immediately say, of course, baby. I remember cutting in once. I need new shoes for gym. Without hesitation, Mom said, we can't do everything. We have priorities. At the stables, Lila ran straight to her pony like she owned the place. Look at me, she shouted while Jess, the instructor, gave her a boost. Mom filmed the whole thing like it was Olympic-level riding. My job was to stand nearby and hold her jacket. Later, I was the one hanging helmets on hooks, lining up boots on the tray, trying to balance all the gear in the mudroom. When one of the crops fell off the shelf, Mom walked in and snapped, be careful, that's expensive. I said, you put 30 toys on one hook. She cut me off with, that tone is not acceptable. Watch yourself and do what you're supposed to do. Mom even went as far as making a whole social media account just for Lila when she was like 5 or 6, posting every picture from the stables like she was raising some mini celebrity. She'd write captions bragging about how dedicated her little rider was, tagging the riding school, throwing hashtags everywhere, while I was usually the one holding the phone or carrying her boots in the background. Those lessons weren't cheap either. I overheard her on the phone once saying it was almost $400 a month, not counting the gear, and somehow she always found a way to cover that. But when I needed $20 for a school field trip, suddenly it was, we don't have money for extras. On the couch, the difference was even clearer. If I tried sitting beside Mom, she'd nudge me away with, I'm not a pillow. But if Lila jumped into her lap 5 seconds later, Mom would stroke her hair and say, my little champion. I'd sit on the floor with my Legos, minding my own business. Once, Lila stepped on a piece and screamed like she broke a bone. She was fine, but Mom ran in, scooped her up, and gave her a popsicle. I got a lecture about keeping my mess off the carpet. One afternoon, I handed Mom my report card. Straight A's, except for one A minus. She looked at it for about 3 seconds and said, "Okay, just that, nothing else." I stood there holding it, waiting for more. Right then, Lila pulled out a crumpled coloring sheet with 3 stickers on it. Mom gasped like she'd won an award and said, "Oh my God, baby, you got stickers? That's amazing!" She pinned it dead center on the fridge. A week later, I found my report card shoved under a magnet on the side, stained with dried juice. Even bath time had a divide. Mom called it spa time for Lila, with fancy shampoo and bubble baths. When I complained my cheap shampoo made my scalp itch, Mom didn't even look up. "Then rinse better," she said. Bedtime wasn't much different. I'd be lying in the dark while Mom passed my room without a word. Down the hall, I'd hear her reading Lila a horse book, doing silly voices, both of them laughing. I'd just stare at the ceiling, picking at the loose threads on my blanket. Turning 8 was supposed to be a big deal for me. I didn't have a huge friend group, but the few kids I hung out with at school were solid. We played tag, swapped Pokemon cards, talked about video games. That year, Mom told me I'd get a birthday party on Saturday. I remember actually being excited. I put on my best outfit, a striped shirt, clean jeans, hair combed down flat, like Dad always said made me look sharp. I stood by the window, waiting for my friends to show up. The first knock at the door wasn't them. It was a group of girls I barely knew. My sister's little riding buddies from the stables. Their moms were with them, carrying wrapped gifts. I figured maybe my friends were just late, so I smiled awkwardly and let them in. Then another knock. Same thing. More of Lila's friends. I went to Mom and whispered, "Where are my friends?" She waved her hand and said, "Don't be rude. Be grateful people came." Pretty soon the living room was full of kids, but they were all around my sister's age. I sat on the couch clutching a plastic cup of juice, watching Lila spin in circles in her dress. And then it happened. One of the moms outside called for everyone to come look, and when the door opened, there it was. A Shetland pony standing in our yard, complete with ribbons in its mane. Everyone cheered. My sister screamed with joy, sprinting out the door. I just froze in the doorway. A pony. At my party. Mom clapped her hands and said, "Look how happy she is." Like the whole event was planned for Lila. I muttered, "It's my birthday." But she gave me a sharp look and hissed, "Don't ruin this." The gifts didn't make things better. Every box had my name scribbled on it. But inside were my little pony sets, horse coloring books, horse figurines. All things my sister would want, not me. I pulled the paper off one box and found a glitter saddle blanket for dolls. I didn't even have dolls. Lila snatched it out of my hand, squealing, "This is perfect for Starfire." Starfire was her stuffed horse. Everyone laughed. Mom said, "See? She's sharing." A sharing what? It wasn't even meant for her. I tried to join in for cake, thinking maybe at least that part would feel like mine. Mom lit the candles, everyone sang, and when I leaned in to blow them out, Lila leaned across the table and puffed at them too. She blew out half of them before I even finished. I glared at her. She stuck her tongue out and said, "I helped you." Mom just shook her head and told me not to be so serious. At one point, I walked back inside to grab water and overheard 2 of the moms talking in the kitchen. One said, "It's nice of her to throw a party for both kids together." I wanted to yell, "It's not for both. It's supposed to be mine." But I just stood there holding the cup, staring at the floor. The rest of the afternoon was basically Lila on the pony, Lila opening my presents, Lila in the center of every picture while I lurked in the background. When people left, they said things like, "She's such a natural rider," and "Your daughter is so graceful." Nobody said a word to me. I went upstairs, shut my door, and sat on my bed staring at the toy car Dad had given me weeks earlier, the one thing that actually felt like mine. Later, after the yard was empty, Dad showed up. He found me in my room, arms crossed, refusing to come downstairs. He asked what happened. I just shook my head. Mom stood in the doorway with this fake, confused face, saying, "I don't know why he's upset. We gave him a nice party. If he doesn't like horses, that's his problem." Dad clenched his jaw but didn't argue right then. He sat with me for a while, handed me a small box, and inside was a little Matchbox car. Just one toy. Cheap. But it was exactly what I wanted. He said quietly, "This one's just for you." That one gift meant more than everything I'd unwrapped earlier. A few weeks later, I heard him confronting Mom in the kitchen. He told her what she did was cruel, that the party was for me, not Lila. She snapped back, "It was what I could offer. If he was a good child, he would have understood and appreciated me. I sat at the top of the stairs listening, gripping the railing, realizing this wasn't about me liking or not liking horses. It was about her deciding I didn't matter. After that argument, Dad didn't push it further in front of me, but I could tell he was furious. He gave me a pat on the shoulder before he left and whispered, "Don't let it eat you up. I see you." That meant more to me than anything Mom had said the entire day. The days after the party were worse. Mom acted like nothing had happened. She made me sit in the living room and write thank you notes for the gifts, even though they weren't for me. "Be polite," she said, sliding the stack of horse wrapping paper in front of me. Lila was in the corner playing with the toys that were supposed to be mine, brushing the mane of a plastic horse and humming. At one point, she looked at me and said, "Why are you mad? You don't even like horses." Mom actually agreed with her, saying, "She's right. You don't appreciate what you get." That was the moment I stopped even trying to argue. After the whole birthday that wasn't mine, I made a silent decision. No more parties at Mom's house. I didn't ask for them. I didn't want them. Whenever she brought it up the following years, and she only did it once or twice, half-heartedly, I'd shake my head and say, "No thanks." She would make some comment like, "You're impossible to please," but I honestly didn't care anymore. What I did care about were the nights with Dad. That became my real tradition. It wasn't fancy, and it definitely wasn't Instagram-worthy like the horse lessons or the staged pictures Mom kept posting of my sister, but it was mine. Every year on my birthday, if Dad was in town, we'd go grab pizza and either rent or watch some action movie. That was it. No balloons, no ponies in the yard, no random kids I didn't know tearing through the house. Just food, movies, and a few hours where I wasn't the background character. The first year we did it, I was turning 9. Dad picked me up in his beat-up gray truck. He leaned over when I climbed in and handed me a small wrapped box, the kind that rattles when you shake it. "Don't open it yet," he said, smirking. I remember being so curious the whole ride, staring at it on my lap. We drove to this little pizza place with neon lights in the window, the kind of spot that smelled like grease the second you opened the door. We sat in a booth. He ordered a large pepperoni with extra cheese and 2 Cokes, which already felt like a win because Mom never let me have soda. While we waited, he asked about school, not in that fake polite way adults sometimes do, but like he actually wanted the answer. "So, who's your best friend now?" he asked. I told him about Marcus, the kid I swapped Pokemon cards with, and Dad leaned in and said, "Smart move. Always have a trading partner." When the pizza came out, steam pouring off it, he slid the first slice onto my plate before taking one for himself. That might not sound like much, but at Mom's house, my sister always got served first, no matter what. It was the little things that stood out. After we ate way too much, we went back to his place, a small rental apartment with mismatched furniture, and he pulled out the VHS tape he'd picked up, Die Hard. He said, "It's not exactly an 8-year-old's movie, but you're almost a man, right?" and popped it into the player. We sat there on the couch, me holding the wrapped gift on my lap, watching Bruce Willis crawl through vents and shoot bad guys. At one point I said, "Can I open it now?" He nodded. Inside the box was a cheap plastic watch. Nothing fancy, probably cost him $10, but I felt like he had handed me something straight out of a spy movie. "Every man needs to know the time," he said. I wore that watch until the strap broke years later. That night set the tone. Every year after that, we did something similar. One year it was Terminator 2, another year it was The Rock with Sean Connery. Always action movies. Always pizza. Always just us. Sometimes one of Dad's buddies would join, usually Rick or Kenny, both guys who worked with him at different jobs. They'd bring beer for themselves, soda for me, and tell dumb stories about their work. Stuff like one time Rick got stuck under a truck axle, or Kenny accidentally set fire to a shed. They'd laugh, clap me on the back, and treat me like I belonged in the group. At Mom's place, birthdays were basically banned from my life, but she still found ways to throw jabs. On my 10th, when I told her I was spending the evening with Dad, she said, "Well, don't expect him to keep that up. He never stays in one place." I just ignored her. When I came home later with pizza leftovers and a new DVD in my bag, she frowned and muttered, "Typical junk food. No wonder you're moody." But honestly, I didn't care. With Dad, it wasn't about the food or the gifts. It was about the way he looked at me when he asked a question, like the answer mattered. With Mom, if I brought up a good grade or a new interest, she'd turn the conversation back to Lila. Dad actually listened. When I turned 12, Dad wasn't in town. His job had him out of state, but he called and said, "Pick the movie, I'll send it to you." A couple days later, a DVD of The Matrix showed up in the mail with a note in his handwriting. Don't let your mom see this one. She'll blame me. That night, I microwaved leftover pizza rolls, sat on the couch alone, and watched it by myself. I still felt connected to him. By 13, it was tradition enough that I didn't even think about it. I'd circle the date on the calendar and mark it as pizza plus movie. I didn't invite friends. I didn't tell anyone at school. It was just between me and him. A ritual. Mom caught on eventually and tried to downplay it. One year she said, "You waste your birthday sitting in a dark room watching nonsense." I shot back, "At least it's mine." She didn't like that, but I didn't care. I had learned by then that her approval wasn't coming, so why chase it? By the time I turned 15, our tradition was still going strong. Pizza, movies, stupid jokes. We sat there watching The Dark Knight that year, and Dad turned to me halfway through and said, "You're almost grown now. Just remember, you don't have to be anyone's sidekick." I didn't fully get it at the time, but those words stuck. That's why, when he passed away the next year, it felt like my whole world collapsed. That was the one steady thing I had, and suddenly it was gone. I remember the phone call a week before my birthday. Mom answered it in the kitchen, and I could tell something was wrong just from her face. She went pale, but instead of breaking down like a normal person would, she just stood there, listening. Then she hung up, set the phone down, and stirred the pot on the stove like nothing had happened. Her voice was flat, almost bored, when she finally said, "Your father's gone." I froze. "What do you mean gone?" She didn't even glance at me. She just flicked the spoon against the pot and said, "Dead. Heart failure. Don't make me repeat myself." That was it. That's how I found out. I stepped closer, fists balled at my sides. "That's all you're gonna say? He's dead? That's it?" She shrugged, still facing the stove. "What do you want me to do? Cry? It won't bring him back." Something inside me snapped. I slammed my hand against the counter so hard the spoon rattled. He was my dad. He actually gave a damn about me. And you act like it's nothing. Finally, she turned around, eyes narrowed like I was the problem. "Don't raise your voice at me. You think you're the only one who lost him? He was my husband first." "No, he wasn't," I shot back. "You hated him. You never cared about him. You just cared about his money. You didn't lose him, Mom. You lost a paycheck." Her face went red. She took a step toward me and pointed a finger in my face. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I'm the only one left keeping this house together. You'd be nothing without me." I slapped her hand away. I'd be nothing without him. He's the one who cared, not you." She gasped like I'd just hit her, then shoved me in the shoulder. "Ungrateful little brat. You'll regret saying that when you're out on the street." I stumbled back, chest heaving, and for a second I thought she was actually going to slap me. Instead, she spun back to the stove, muttering, "Pathetic. Just like your father. Weak." The funeral wasn't any better. Mom sat in the front row with her arms crossed, scanning the room like she cared more about who was watching her than the fact that Dad was in the casket. I tried to hold it together, but when the tears came, she leaned over and hissed, "Don't embarrass yourself. People are watching." My sister wasn't clueless. She was old enough to understand what was happening, but instead of being shaken or quiet like you'd expect, she leaned toward Mom and whispered, "So, who's gonna pay for my horse riding lessons now?" She said it like it was the most important thing on her mind. I turned and stared at her, jaw tight. Like, "Are you serious right now? Dad's in the coffin and that's what you're worried about?" Mom didn't even flinch. She put her arm around my sister and said softly, "Don't worry, sweetheart. It'll all be taken care of. You're not going to lose anything." I snapped, a little louder than I meant to. "Of course she won't. She never does." Mom whipped her head toward me with that icy glare. "Not here," she hissed. "Don't you dare make a scene." But the damage was already done. Sitting there in that front row, hearing them talk about horse lessons like they were the tragedy, I realized I was the only one who had actually lost something that day. For them, it was just an adjustment. For me, it was Dad. Later, when my birthday finally came around, I thought maybe Mom would ease up. I wasn't expecting a party or anything, just maybe space to grieve. Instead, she locked the front door. Literally locked me inside the house. I tried leaving, planning to go sit at the park or just walk around to clear my head, but the key was gone. She caught me rattling the knob and snapped, "You're not running off to sulk. You're staying here." I said, "I don't want to sit here with you." Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned in close like she was about to slap me. "You think you have options now that your father's dead? You don't. You live under my roof. You follow my rules." That day, she laid it all out. Dad's money was gone. She didn't have a job, and she made it very clear I was expected to pick up the slack. "You're old enough," she said. 16. Plenty of kids' work. If you don't start bringing money into this house, you won't have a place here." I sat on the couch, fists clenched, trying to process what she was saying. "So that's it? I just work and pay your bills now?" She shrugged like it was obvious. "You should be grateful I'm even letting you stay. Do you know how many single mothers would have given up on a boy like you? If you were a good son, you'd already be helping without me asking." I wanted to scream at her, tell her that Dad would hate her for using me like this. Instead, I just muttered, "You're unbelievable." She snapped back, "Watch your mouth. I won't tolerate disrespect." That birthday, I sat in silence while she boiled spaghetti. The only sound in the house was the pot bubbling on the stove. She didn't say a word to me the whole time, just banged plates onto the counter like I was invisible. When the food was ready, she shoved a plate in front of me without even looking, then turned her attention straight to my sister. Lila twirled her fork and asked, "Can we watch my videos after dinner? I think some of them turned right so we could post something tonight." Mom actually smiled and said, "Of course, baby. We'll put them on right after." The next day, she shoved the classifieds at me and said, "Circle something. Anything. Fast food, grocery store, I don't care. You're not going to sit here wasting space." I circled a dishwashing job at a diner just to shut her up. She acted like she'd done me a favor. "See? You'll thank me one day for teaching you responsibility." But it wasn't about responsibility. It was about control. Every paycheck I brought home, she demanded a house cut. She'd say, "If you want to stay here, you contribute." If I hesitated, she'd guilt trip me, talking about how she's sacrificed everything for us. I was the one working late nights, coming home smelling like grease. While my sister sat on the couch surrounded by new horse gear Mom somehow still managed to afford. One night, a couple months after my birthday, she cornered me in the kitchen. She jabbed her finger right in my face and said, "When you turn 18, you're out of here. You think you're grown? Fine. Go struggle on your own. But don't forget, you'll still send money back. Since you worship your dad so much, you can be just like him. Gone all the time, but still paying for us. That's the only thing he was ever good for anyway." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the thought of staying 1 second longer than I had to made me sick. "We'll see," I told her. She slapped the counter so hard the salt shaker jumped. "Don't you dare defy me. You think the world out there cares about you? You'll come crawling back." I didn't answer. But right then, I made a promise to myself. 2 more years. Just survive 2 more years, and I'd be gone. Those last 2 years before I turned 18 felt like I was doing a prison sentence. Everything was about survival. I was living in a house where my mom didn't see me as a son, just as free labor and a wallet she thought she was entitled to. After Dad died, there was no buffer, no one to step in and tell her she was being cruel. It was just me, her, and my sister, and every day was a grind. I got my first steady job washing dishes at this crappy diner downtown. Grease everywhere, burns on my forearms from hot pans, the manager yelling if you moved too slow. It didn't matter. The money wasn't great, but it was money. I handed most of it over to my mom because she demanded it, standing in the doorway every payday like a collector. She'd hold out her hand and say, "Give me what's mine." I'd fold a couple of bills into my sock before I got home so I could stash it later. That's how I built my escape fund. One hidden 20 at a time. She never asked what I wanted to do with my life. She only asked, "How much did you make?" And if it wasn't enough, she'd rant about how ungrateful I was, how she sacrificed so much for me. "Do you know how many mothers would have kicked you out already?" She'd shout. "You should thank me every day you have a roof." Meanwhile, my sister never lifted a finger. Mom kept her in riding lessons, new boots, helmets, tack. Her lessons now were about $600. I asked, "How come she gets all that and I'm paying bills?" Mom snapped, "Because she's worth investing in. She has talent. You don't. She is worth it. It will all pay back. She's got 160,000 on Instagram now." Every day I woke up, went to school, went to work, came home exhausted, and braced myself for her picking apart something I did wrong. I kept my head down and told myself, 2 more years. Just survive 2 more years. By the time I turned 18, I had about $1,400 hidden away. Not a fortune, but enough to get me moving. My birthday morning, I packed my bag before she even woke up. 1 duffel bag with clothes, a backpack with some old notebooks, and the Matchbox car Dad had given me when I was 8. That was it. When she saw me by the door, she sneered. "Where do you think you're going?" "I'm leaving," I said. "I'm done." "You're not done. You still owe this family," she barked, blocking the doorway. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I don't owe you anything. You want money? Get a job." That made her explode. She jabbed her finger in my chest and hissed, "If you walk out that door, don't you ever think you can come back." I pushed past her. That's the point. The air outside felt different. It wasn't much, but it was freedom. The first few weeks were rough. I crashed on a friend's couch, then rented a crappy room in a house that smelled like mold. I worked whatever shifts I could get. Diner, grocery store, unloading trucks. I stretched every dollar. Instant noodles, canned soup, cheap bread. But I didn't care. Every night, even when I was hungry or tired, I'd tell myself, at least she can't control me anymore. Then something happened I didn't expect. About a month after I left, one of Dad's old friends reached out. His name was Mark. He called me up and said, "Your dad told me if anything ever happened to him, I should find you." We met at a diner, the kind with sticky booths and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. He sat across from me with a serious look and slid a manila envelope across the table. "Your dad left this with me," he said. "Told me not to give it to your mom. Only you." I opened it, and my hands shook. Inside were cashier's checks and bank slips. $60,000. I stammered, This is mine?" Mark nodded. "All yours. He wanted you to have a shot at life. He said you'd need it." I just sat there stunned. For years, I'd been living paycheck to paycheck, hiding singles in coffee cans. And now I had more money than I'd ever dreamed of. Mark wasn't done. "I've got work too. It's steady. Pays well. Your dad helped me once. And I promised him I'd look out for you if it ever came to this." For the first time in my life, I wasn't broke and scared. I had money in the bank and a job lined up. I could actually think about a future. Of course, it didn't take long for Mom to find out. I don't know how. Maybe my sister told her. Maybe she dug around. But one night my phone lit up with her number. I let it ring, but she kept calling. Finally, I picked up. "You ungrateful brat," she spat, before I could even say hello. "That money belongs to me. Your father owed me. You owe me. Hand it over, or don't bother calling yourself part of this family." I laughed bitterly. "Family? You made it clear years ago I wasn't part of your family. And no, you're not getting a dime." She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away. "If you don't give me what's mine, you'll regret it. You'll see what happens when you cross me. Work for it yourself," I said. "I'm done." Then I hung up. That set her off like never before. She started showing up at my job, yelling in the parking lot. She left notes under my door. Once she even tried to convince my landlord she was my emergency contact so she could get a spare key. I had to call the cops to make her back off. They gave her a warning, but she still hovered like a shadow. The last time I saw her face to face, she cornered me outside my apartment. She was shaking with anger, spitting every word. "You'll never be anything without me. You think your father's scraps make you a man? You'll crawl back. They all crawl back." People on the sidewalk stopped to watch. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "I already am something without you." Then I walked inside and shut the door. I realized warnings weren't enough, so I went down to the courthouse and filed for a restraining order. It wasn't easy, standing there telling a judge about the years of abuse, the stalking, the harassment, but I did it. When the order was granted, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Legally, she couldn't come near me, couldn't call me, couldn't show up at my work or apartment without consequences. When the papers were served, she went ballistic. She called from a blocked number, screaming, "How dare you? I'm your mother. You can't do this to me." I stayed calm and said, "You already did this to yourself. I'm done being your hostage." Then I hung up. That was the last call I ever answered. From that point on, she was cut off completely. No money, no access, no excuses. She tried a few times to get around it, but the legal case gave me the shield I needed. If she showed up, I could call the cops and she'd be violating the order. For the first time in my life, I felt untouchable. It didn't take long for their little empire to crumble. Without Dad's money, without me handing over paychecks, and with me shutting the door legally, they burned through what they had. The horse lessons stopped first. Too expensive to keep up. And when that went, the horse girl image my sister had online went with it. No new riding pictures, no shiny gear, no stable videos, and the followers dried up fast. Now they're both broke, sitting under a pile of debt, begging people for handouts online. My mom still tries to spin it like she's the victim, but nobody's buying it anymore. The Golden Child Act doesn't work when there's no gold left to spend. Now, I've got a steady job thanks to Mark, money in savings, and an apartment that's mine. No horse posters, no charts on the wall tracking my helpfulness, no one waiting to snatch my paycheck out of my hand. Just me, living on my terms.